Hello again. So with tens of thousands of British tourists expected to be skiing in the Alps over half-term, lots of school trips as well, aren't there? So lots of very concerned parents and grandparents at the moment when they heard the news of yesterday's avalanche in France. It's really raised concerns over the safety of the slopes under the current snow conditions.
Yeah, so yesterday there was the sad news that 4 snowboarders were killed by a wall of snow in the popular ski resort of Tignes. Our chief correspondent Richard Gaisford is there for us this morning. Good morning to you, Richard. And this is a shocking thing to happen. We've got so many people there on holiday at the moment. Do the authorities know yet what triggered this avalanche, what caused it to happen?
Well, at the moment, Charlotte, they're suggesting that it was someone higher up on the Lavachet wall, the big peak behind the buildings here, that triggered that, sending that wall of snow down behind the buildings. This is a popular area with Brits, as you say. Take a look. Let's speak with Henry Schneewind now, who is an avalanche and off-piste expert. And Henry, I mean, are you clear on what happened yesterday?
Pretty clear, but first I want to say it's just very sad. Less than 24 hours after the accident happened, and it's just very, very sad. Victims, our heart goes out to the victims and their families. What happened was it happens in 90-95% of all avalanche accidents. It was triggered by a person. Usually that's the person and the victim themselves or someone in their group, but there is some speculation as to that there might have been a group above, and that scenario is becoming more and more common with the increased popularity of off-piste skiing over the last 10 years or so.
Now, there's a lot of people skiing this half-term. There's a lot of people wanting to go off-piste to have that experience. Is it safe to do so?
Well, first of all, there is not a generalized danger everywhere. That's for sure. There is a danger. It's an isolated danger, localized, as they call it, on a danger rating of 3 out of 5 scale. So I think that definitely caution is definitely advised when we go off-piste at any time. But it's certainly, this accident doesn't preclude any off-piste activity or skiing activity. It would be like if there was an accident on the motorways today that we were reporting on. Would we be driving today or not? Maybe some people wouldn't, but most people would drive, but perhaps with a little bit more caution.
Now, you're carrying some specific kit here. Now, they had this kit with them, but it didn't help them.
Yes. The basic kit that is pretty much required is a transceiver, sends a signal, receives a signal, allows the group above the snow to go in and find the buried victim or victims in this case, and then you get close to where the victim is buried, and you get out a probe pole, which is kind of like a tent pole that locks, and then a shovel, because snow, even light snow, is actually quite a heavy thing. This is the basic required equipment. Because really, if you're taken and buried underneath the snow, you only have about 15 minutes to live. So it's up to the victims and their group to get the person out alive. Now here, the problem is there was a big trough at the bottom of the slope, a man-made earthen sort of trough, to protect the town from avalanches coming down from above up there. And what that did, it exacerbated the problem. It made it even worse, even deeper, up to about maybe 2 or 3 meters of snow.
Well, Henry, thank you very much for your insight this morning. It is shocking news, as Henry says, but there are still people coming into town. The lifts are about to open, and people will still go skiing today.
Richard, OK, thanks very much for that. And shocking, isn't it? As Henry was saying there, 15 minutes, literally, when that avalanche happens. That's the only time you've got to escape from it.
Get yourself out. Yeah, it is frightening, isn't it? Particularly if you... I know some of our producers have got children that are on school trips, haven't they?
Lots of people skiing at the moment.
Sort of nervousness going on. OK. Now, with tens of thousands of British tourists expected to be skiing in the Alps over half-term, lots of school trips, lots of parents and grandparents feeling a bit nervous about the whole thing, especially after news of yesterday's avalanche in France, which has raised all sorts of concerns over the safety of the slopes under current snow conditions.
Yes, yesterday the sad news came that 4 snowboarders were killed by a wall of snow in the popular ski resort of Tignes. Our chief correspondent Richard Gaisford is there for us this morning. Good morning to you, Richard. Obviously, still people out and about skiing this morning despite what happened. Do the authorities know yet what triggered this avalanche?
Yes, people not put off by what happened yesterday, Charlotte, and the authorities do think they know. They think that there was someone skiing wall there, and that caused an avalanche to come down 400 metres wide, taking these snowboarders with it and sweeping them into a very deep trough. But of course, being a north-facing slope and having a steepness to it, there is definitely an issue with avalanche there, and because it's so accessible by the lifts, people definitely put themselves into a problematic situation that yesterday when that avalanche fell. We've been speaking this morning to Henry, who is an avalanche expert, lived lives here, has done for the last 25 years, and he's been giving us some advice.
I'm just devastated. We all are. When something like this happens, everybody in the community is, it's less than 24 hours. It's very, very sad, and my heart goes out to the victims and their family. And what I'm going to continue doing with Henry's Avalanche Talk is helping the general public and everybody to avoid these kinds of situations, because you can have a great time off-piste skiing. Know your limits. Think about going with people who are experienced, and knowing your limits means perhaps staying on slopes below 30 degrees, below that black run steepness. Think about when you're on a steep slope, what would happen if the sloped avalanches? 9 out of 10 avalanches or even more are triggered by a person, by the victim or someone in their group.
Henry Shewwind is zelfstandig skileraar en skiet al 25 jaar buiten de piste. Hij is een Amerikaan en geeft les in Val d'Isère, vlakbij Tignes. Wanneer hij van de pistes afwijkt, neemt hij altijd het nodige veiligheidsmateriaal mee.
This is transmitting all the time, so you don't have to do anything. It's only when someone's buried that with this you switch over onto receive.
Ook Henry deelt die mening. Wie buiten piste gaat, doet dat op eigen verantwoordelijkheid. Al had hij zelf de afdaling van gisteren niet genomen.
Is that there was a big terrain trap at the bottom. There was like a big trough of snow that actually was built to protect the village from avalanches that come down off that slope. And we call a terrain trap can be a hole, it can be a lake, it can be cliffs. It's anything that makes an avalanche much more dangerous. And in this case, they were buried so deep that I don't think they had much of a chance.
Henry verhuisde net naar Frankrijk omwille van de vrijheid van het buitenpiste skiën. Hij raadt aan om afdalingen steiler dan een zwarte piste te vermijden. Want in 9 op de 10 gevallen worden lawines veroorzaakt door de slachtoffers zelf of anderen in de buurt.
An avalanche in the French Alps triggered an emergency response this morning. There were fears that several skiers in the resort of Tignes had been swept away, but authorities later confirmed that there were no victims. Avalanche warnings have been issued for the area. The current risk is 4 on a scale of 5. So should resorts allow people to go off-piste when conditions are of a concern? Well, joining us now is the avalanche expert Henry Shewwind from Val d'Isère in France. So could we talk a bit more firstly about this particular avalanche? Should more have been done to try and protect any of the people who may have been caught up in it?
Well, I think the teen security patrol, they call the pisteurs, that patrol the piste and open them and close them, do an excellent job. And this is a very, very rare occurrence. No one was hurt in this avalanche today, and I think that's due to the fact that the risk really was not all that high, even though a few people got pushed around by the avalanche that came down onto the piste, the trail.
What should you do if you are caught up in an emergency when you're out skiing?
Well, the first thing, but I'll get to that your question. But before that, say that prevention is really the best thing to do, and try to prevent being caught up in an avalanche. Because once you do get caught up in an avalanche, it's very difficult to get out of it. And once you're buried, you only have about 15 minutes to live. So one of the things that I do with Henry's Avalanche Talk is show people how to have fun and be safe on the off-piste, and reduce the odds of getting taken in an avalanche down to a minimum. Basically, try to make it as safe as you would be in your everyday activities, whether it's driving on the motorways or doing a bit of DIY at home.
Some good advice there. Thank you very much for joining us today. You're watching Sky News. Coming up,